They have these where you live. These are called loosies. It means single items of something that are usually sold in packages, like these crackers. But because not everyone can afford to buy a whole box, store owners who have a customer base that doesn't necessarily have a lot of money to spend, those store owners will sometimes sell stuff loosely, as in loosies. Most of the time when people talk about loosies, they mean cigarettes. It is an often illegal but often available way to buy one cigarette at a time instead of buying a whole expensive pack. But it's not always cigarettes. You can also find Lucy aspirin and Lucy eggs and so on. Lucy's can tell us a lot about the local customers, whether it is poor students who are always trying to bust up a six-pack of beer or working families scrounging something for the kids to eat. We do not all approach the counter with the same amount of money at our disposal. But regardless of how much we can afford to buy at any one time, we are all treated the same way by the sales tax. Sales tax doesn't care if you are a janitor with 4 kids and $1 precious dollar, or if you are a cardiologist with a second home and lots of dollars. And because of that, the less you make, the greater percentage of your income you pay when you pay the sales tax. If you don't make much money, that sales tax on the egg might be 1% of a day's pay for you. Could probably be more like 0.1% of the cardiologist's paycheck for the day. A sales tax is therefore among the least populist ways of raising money for government, proportionally speaking. It takes the most from people with the least money and the least from everybody who has more money. Because of that backwards impact, because it's harder on the poor and easier on the rich, you might think a tax like that would be among the most unpopular tax ideas. But in bright red states, in states where Republicans have complete control of the government, that tax all of a sudden is really popular. This month in Louisiana, Republican Governor Bobby Jindal wrote out his agenda for this year. Get rid of the income tax and corporate taxes, where how much you pay depends on how much you make. But do not worry about the billions in lost tax revenue, because Louisiana, to compensate, will jack up the sales tax that everybody has to pay and that takes such a bigger chunk out of poor people's pocketbooks. When the nonpartisan tax wonks calculate the effect of Governor Jindal's plan, they find that overall taxes will fall for the richest 20% of people in the state. Their taxes will go down, but for the remaining 80% of the population, taxes will go up. And the people in all of Louisiana who can least afford a tax hike will get the biggest tax hike. That is what Bobby Jindal has in the works for Louisiana. Happy Mardi Gras. In Kansas, which doesn't have Mardi Gras except privately, Republican Governor Sam Brownback gets to do more or less what Sam Brownback wants, because Republicans also control the legislature there. The other day, Governor Brownback announced his agenda for this year. And, oh, hey, look, that's familiar, an end to the income tax. Already, Republican tax cuts approved last year have opened up a giant hole in the Kansas budget. Now the governor wants to pay for that with a higher sales tax and by ending tax breaks that benefit ordinary working families. This is after Kansas Republicans already took away tax breaks for stuff like food, the kind of tax breaks that try to make up for the unfair nature of the sales tax. The nonpartisan tax wonks say they have a worried eye on the plans of Republican governors this year, not just in Kansas and Louisiana, but in Wisconsin and in Ohio and Nebraska. In North Carolina, where Republicans won complete control last year, they're now talking about making the poor pay more. So that's how the political season is opening up this year in the red states. In Washington, D.C., where Republicans are not in charge, where they like to remind everyone that they only control 1/2 of 1/3 of the federal government, Republicans have been sounding the sad trombone this past week. Woe is them, or woe are them, I guess.
We're expecting here over the next 22 months to be the focus of this administration as they attempt to annihilate the Republican Party. And let me just tell you, I do believe that is their goal, to just shove us into the dustbin of history.
He needs to delegitimize the Republican Party and House Republicans in particular. The president will bait us. He will portray us as cruel and unyielding. We can't get rattled. We won't play the villain in his morality plays.
Democrats are not organized enough to have their talking points be this evident, but when Republicans do it, it's kind of obvious, right? This is the new Republican leadership talking point. President Obama is mean, and Republicans are helpless before his meanness in Washington. But you know what? Republicans have complete control of government in 24 states, which is a lot. And where they do have control, they're not blaming Obama, right? Look what they're doing in governance. they're having the rich pay less and they're having the poor pay more. This is not what they are marketing to the nation, but this is what they are doing when they are handed the reins of government. Economist Paul Krugman wrote about this déjà news in his latest column. What we're seeing now, he says, is open, explicit, reverse Robin Hoodism, taking from ordinary families and giving to the rich. Even as Republicans look for a way to sound more sympathetic and less extreme, their actual policies are taking another sharp right turn. Why is this happening? In particular, why is it happening now, just after an election in which the Republican Party paid a price for its anti-populist stand? Good question. And it's the distance between what the Beltway writes down when the Republicans talk about themselves versus what Republicans actually do where they are in charge. It's a very good question. Paul Krugman himself is here for the interview. Straight ahead.